Hello and welcome to this episode on the Excellent Manifestations podcast. This is Sujaya, your life coach, helping you live your life to full potential using the power of your intuition. In this episode, we're going to be learning how does the ego self act, how does it take its form, and how can you live your life not based on your ego self. So thank you very much once again for tuning into this podcast, and thank you for choosing to invest your time to listen to this episode. Let's dive in. So what is the ego self? The ego self mainly takes its form from the pain body that you've been carrying within you. And what do you mean by pain body? Pain body is all the trauma, the hurts, the judgments, resentments, guilt, blame, shame, all that you have heard, maybe all that you have experienced, or even if you have not experienced in first hand, maybe you've watched it from a very close distance happening to your sibling, happening to your very close friend, happening to your cousin repetitively, and that has created a false impression in your subconscious mind. So all these experiences create some kind of judgment, some kind of hurt, some kind of resentment that takes the shape of pain body sitting inside of you, and this shows up as the ego self. Now, what are some ways through which you will be able to identify that you are being pushed to react based on your ego self versus being guided by your true self? And most importantly, all of us would love to be guided by our true self, because most times what happens is when you are being pushed to react through our ego self, maybe momentarily you might be feeling happy, but eventually you end up not feeling good about it, about whatever has happened, about however you have reacted, about whatever you've said. So what are some things that you can do so that you will be able to identify that entity called ego self, and most importantly, you will be able to live your life not based on how your ego self is pushing you to take action. So what are these 5 techniques? Let's dive in. The first one is ask yourself why. So even before you react to anything, even before you respond to anything, even before you do anything in your day-to-day life, just ask yourself why. Maybe you got triggered by some experience, maybe you got triggered by some other person, and you feel like shouting, you feel like answering back, you feel like maybe yelling at your kids, but ask yourself why. Why do I want to do this? Yes, maybe you're just doing something that gives you joy. Even in that instance, ask yourself why. The more you are asking yourself why, the better clarity you are having regarding you being guided by your true self or you being pushed by your ego self. So why do I want to yell at my child? Why do I want to act this way? Why do I not want to start this new habit when I really actually want to start it? Why do I want to wake up late? Why do I want to snooze the alarm? Why am I postponing this? Why am I getting irritated in the kitchen? Why is this overwhelming to me? Why is this kind of work maybe frustrating to me? Why is the traffic irritating me? Why is this specific person or this group of people I'm not comfortable being with them? Yeah, why am I being triggered by these things that are happening outside of me? So the very, very important question that you got to ask yourself why. Second one is becoming aware of immediate consequence versus long-term result of any action that you take. So usually what happens is whatever your ego self is kind of pushing you to do gives you the immediate consequence of that is a momentary happiness, is some kind of comforted feeling that you have. Maybe you just don't want to start reading a book today, and then the ego self says that's okay, you can start it tomorrow, that's okay, that one day doesn't matter much, you can start it tomorrow, or maybe you can just research about what kind of book you would like to start and then order it, and then when it comes you can start reading it. That's okay, you can take your time. Yeah, so when you are listening to your ego self, what's happening is you feel comforted at that point of time. Or maybe you just binge scrolling or binge watching on your phone, you just feel comforted, you just feel relaxed, but it is just at that point of time. Remember, that's just the first level consequence. Momentarily you feel joyful, but 20 minutes after browsing your phone, 30 minutes after watching that, binge watching all those videos, you actually are feeling stressed. You actually end up having a heavy head. And again, momentarily you feel joyful when you have postponed starting your new habit, when you have skipped that something that you wanted to do today. At that point of time, you are feeling comforted, you feel relaxed, but you actually feel bad for not doing what you really want to do. So what is the immediate consequence? Immediate consequence is that momentary happiness, that feeling of comfort which you feel at that point of time, versus long term result of my action. Okay, maybe I feel like skipping to do yoga, to do my morning rituals today, but what would be the long term result of my action? What is the second level consequence? Maybe first level consequence is I'm snoozing the alarm, I'm relaxing, I'm sleeping for another 30 minutes, for another 1 hour, and I feel super comforted. But then what could be the second level consequence? The second level consequence could be tomorrow again I might be skipping my morning rituals. The second level consequence could be I'm not so much conscious or super conscious about how I am living my day, about my emotions, just like how I would be when I do my morning rituals. And the third level consequence could be I am also kind of bringing in disturbance in relations, because I am not able to manage my emotions, because I was not focusing on myself, I did not nurture myself, I did not nourish myself in the first place, and then all my emotions are going here and there, and because of that I'm just yelling everywhere around, maybe at my child, maybe at the spouse, I'm just getting irritated at everybody out there. Yes, that could be the third level consequence. Likewise, you would have fourth level consequence and a long term result of the action, right? So when you are being pushed, or when you're just doing what your ego self is asking you to do, the immediate consequence could be joyful, could be relaxing, could be comforted, but the long term result of that action might not make you feel good. So become aware of what is the immediate consequence if I do this. If the immediate consequence and the long term result of my action are one and the same, then bingo, I'm being guided not by my ego self but by my true self, right? So that's a check that you can have for yourself. The third one is recognizing unhealthy patterns that are happening in your behavior, in the way you react in your life, right? Life is what you make of it. So life is pretty much what you are creating through the reactions that you are having during the day. So what is a pattern? A pattern is a pattern, for example, could be a reaction that is happening repetitively. And recognizing that a pattern is unhealthy is very, very important, because when you know that something is unhealthy, you wouldn't want to do it. All of us, we do something which may not help us because we do not know that they're not helping us, right? We just feel like doing it. We just feel like, okay, that's okay if I do it. But we don't really get into the serious analysis of how that is not helping me, how that is unhealthy for me in my life, in my day, for myself, for my own self, not even to the next person, but for my own self, right? So some examples of unhealthy patterns could be, say for example, every day you wake up at 6 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. Your child wakes up, and then your alarm is set. Your mental state is set that way. And one day you wake up at 6 a.m. and then you're doing your morning rituals at 6:10 a.m. or 6:15 a.m. much before than the time that you expect your child has woken up. And then you get into a serious panicky mode, saying, oh my God, whatever I wanted to do, I just cannot do that because my child has woken up. And then now I have to sit with my child or sleep with my child for the next 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And then my kitchen would be disturbed, and then my cooking would be disturbed, and then something else would be disturbed, and then the whole day is ruined, right? Now, if this kind of reaction is happening once or twice and you are becoming aware of how you are reacting, then that's totally fine. That's completely normal. But if you are going in a state of unawareness, you are not conscious of the way you are reacting, of your panicky mode, and it is repeating day after day after day, maybe it's repeating 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, yes, then you got to catch hold of that pattern which is actually not helping you, right? Or maybe the house help did not turn up, and then boom, you're just piling up all of that anger that's within you, that's just blasting it out. Why didn't you tell me? You could have told me earlier, blah 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 blah, right? Or maybe you're showing that anger on your family members, whatever it is. But recognize the unhealthy patterns that have gotten into your behavior, that have gotten into the kind of reaction that you are having on a daily basis, and become aware of it and turn it around. Once you are aware of it, then you do not want to repeat that kind of reaction. The fourth point is identify your need for control. So most of us get tangled up in the things that we do not have control on. Yes, people coming from the outside, situations happening on the outside, life situations that are happening on the outside. Yes, experiences that are coming from the outside. The only 3 things that you have control on are your thoughts, your words, and your actions. And the only time that you have control over these 3 things is now. Not your past, not your future. So the next time you get into some kind of conflict, or you are tangled up in your own mind about something that's happened in the past, or something that you could be foreseeing or you could be fearing to be happening in the future, just come back to an awareness and ask yourself, is it something that I can control? If it is something that I cannot control, then can I use my wisdom to surpass it, to go through it, to sail through that challenge? Yes, can I use my inner strength to sail through that challenge? If I can control, then that is pretty much that's coming from me, right? It's not something that's coming from an outside situation or outside experience or outside people. It's pretty much coming from me. So if I can control, it could be the way I think, it could be the way I talk, it could be the way I act, it could be the routines that I have, it could be the way I manage my time, it could be the way I manage my emotions. If I can control, then okay, what is the plan of action? What is it that I need to control now, right? Control meaning, again, it's not stopping your anger, it is not stopping your emotion inside of you, but actually healthily managing your emotion, resolving the conflict that you are having inside of you. So now, then you would have to reflect on what is your need. Is your need to control something coming from the outside, or do you actually identify something that's coming from the inside? And that is what you would like to change, that is what you would like to work on, and then reflecting on that and then taking action towards working on it, right? The 5th point is getting in touch with yourself. It could be through silence, it could be through doing something that truly relaxes you, that gives you joy. So most times what happens is we don't know what relaxes us. And then by default, we pick the phone, by default, we turn on the TV, by default, we are just indulging or just spending the hours and hours of time in consuming content, right? Thinking that it relaxes us. But after that, you can just self-introspect. It doesn't actually relax you. You actually end up feeling very heavy after having binge watched or binge scrolled over social media, right? So the point is, get in touch with yourself through silence or through doing something. So truly know what is that one activity that doing which I get closer to myself. It could be writing, it could be reading, it could be drawing, it could be doodling, it could be coloring, it could be painting, it could be mandala coloring or mandala drawing, or there are so many ways for you to spend some time just to get closer to yourself. Or it could be just sitting in silence, right? So the main point is, the main motive is, you have to get closer to your inner self. The fifth point is very, very important, because if you are not getting closer to your inner self, you are just not being aware of your inner self, of the presence of the most powerful part of you, and you are simply giving away your control to your ego self, to your pain body. And you know what happens, right? You do something that your pain body or your ego self has pushed you to do. Maybe you are momentarily feeling good, but eventually it is something that does not make you feel good. So make sure, I'll just recap the 5 points. The first one was, ask yourself why before doing anything, and then become aware of immediate consequence versus long-term result of your action. The third point was recognizing unhealthy patterns that are happening on a daily basis. Fourth point was identify your need for control. And the fifth point is get in touch with yourself. The most important point, get in touch with yourself through silence or through doing something that you know truly relaxes you, and you are getting closer to yourself. You know more and more about yourself, you discover about yourself, and you're truly amazed by how much you are inside of you. Yes, so make sure you fall back, you take some notes, and you, most importantly, implement whatever you've heard from this podcast. Once again, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for investing your time to listen to this podcast. Take care. I'll meet you in the next episode. Cheers. Bye-bye.